Only speak when invited to by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communications via the chair. Please ensure your mics are muted when you're not speaking, apart from the chair, who does not need to mute their mic at any stage. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time frames highlighted at the start of the hearing. If you are referring to a specific page or picture in the report, please refer to the page number. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the committee. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. There are two applications. Parties are advised that after each application is heard in turn, as set out in the agenda packs, the subcommittee will not retire after each application. The parties can contact the licensing services to be informed of the decision the following day, or can simply wait until they are notified of the decision. Applicants and all other parties will be asked to leave the proceedings after their item is concluded. Once all applications have been considered, any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing. Please do so promptly. Each party will be notified of the decision within 5 working days. Please could I ask the subcommittee to appoint a chair?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Emma Brevier.
Like to second that.
Thanks, colleagues. Okay, so going on to the agenda. We've elected a chair. We have no apologies for absence. Do we have any declarations of interest? None from myself. No, thank you, colleagues. Okay, I will just quickly introduce myself, Councillor Emma Pluvier, my councillor colleagues, Councillor Bell and Councillor Vijana Thomas. We also have throughout the hearing Peter Gray, who's our governance officer. We have Amanda North, who's our legal officer, and we have Suba Sirimana, who's our licensing officer. I think those are the consistent people through the whole of this committee. Mario, who handles our IT, thank you, in the corner. Okay, the hearing procedure is in the agenda. I'm afraid I don't have page numbers, but it's at the beginning, near the beginning. I hope everyone has an agenda. The hearing procedure is that we introduce ourselves, then the licensing officer will outline the report for each item. The applicant presents their case, responsible authorities, if applicable, present theirs, and then other people present their case. We indicate suggested 5 minutes for each of those cases. Then we're able to have a discussion, but through the chair, points raised, hands raised, or indicate with the little hand signal. And that enables us then to move on to closing remarks and a final clarification before we close that item. Normally we'd retire and make a decision, but online we don't do that. We simply close that item, those people leave, and we go on to the next one, and our decision is made afterwards. So is that clear for everyone? If there's any questions on the procedure, please indicate. I'm sorry, I've gone through it rather fast, but I think you may be aware of it. Okay, so the item we're going to deal with first is the 3 compasses. So I believe we have Mr. Izzo and as the other people for this one. We have PC Dave Atkins from the police for this one. And from the 3 compasses, hello.
Hello, hi there. So I'm Lauren Johns, and this is my fellow licensee, Briac Lacmoon.
Lovely. Okay. I think that's everybody for this one, for this item. Yeah. Okay, so in that case, I'll ask Suba, please, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing service are a receipt of an application for variation of premises license under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 for 3 Compass, 99 Dalston Lane, for films on Sunday, extend supply of alcohol for on sales on Sunday, and to allow customers to drink outside until 2300. Representations remains from the police and one other persons. The applicant and the other person have submitted additional information which has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely, thanks very much. Any points of clarification, colleagues? No, lovely. Okay, in that case, we'll go over to the applicant, please, to hear your submission.
Hello there. Just to let you know that the we had an objection from the police and one resident, but the residents actually removed their objection once they saw the document that we'd put together. So I think it's just the police now. But yeah, just for clarification. But so we have been at the Three Compasses for 10 years, and we've got a really great relationship with all the residents. We've not had any issues there. We are a really diverse pub, and we offer nights for everyone in the community. So we have gay friendly nights and political nights, as well as pub quiz. We have in the daytimes, it's used for workshops for adults with learning difficulties. It's a real focal point in the community. It's not a rowdy crowd. It's our clientele is professionals and creatives from late 20s to 40s. So yeah, it's not a boisterous crowd. So it's an award-winning pub. So we won the Time Out Award for Best Pub in Hackney E8 a few years ago as well. So the reasons we're wanting to extend the hours, for the Sunday extension of the hours, basically we have got a small kitchen and we can't do a roast, so it means on Sundays we're quite quiet. So if we, especially Sunday evenings, so for us to remain viable to open on a Sunday, we have to put some events on. So one idea was to put on a film night, because we know people who work in the film industry, so we can actually show films that have a relation to the area, and then have a Q&A afterwards with people like cinematographers and even directors who live in Hackney. But for us to show a film and have a Q&A afterwards, it's not really viable for us to close at 10:30. So that was the reason for that variation. For the extension of the garden, we since the pandemic, obviously people prefer to sit outside because it's safer for ventilation. So I think that's something that's going to remain long after the pandemic. I don't know if you all know the pub, but we're a small pub with quite a small outside space. So there's only 8 tables outside. It's covered. It's all fixed seating. I don't know if you received the document that I sent that had a photo of it. You've got that.
We did, yeah.
So there's no standing space. But so yes, the reason for this extension is because basically in summer we only have people outside. Really, people don't sit inside. So when the garden closes at 10, there's a mass exodus, and then we have nobody left in the pub. So that's even on a Friday and Saturday night in summer. We're up against Ridley Road Market Bar around the corner and the Dalston Victoria, where you're allowed to sit outside 7 nights a week until 11. So for us to remain viable, I mean that hour is crucial to our business, because yeah, it's just not viable for us to open in summer really past those hours if once we have to close. Yes, so the extra hour, it also has a knock-on effect for staff, and so obviously if we're really quiet then we don't have the hours for people, so an extra hour outside would be an extra hour employment for a door person, and then also 1 or 2 staff who would be dedicated for the outside area. So that's up to 21 hours additional employment. So in terms of it meeting the licensing objectives, so for the prevention of crime and disorder and public safety, for us, we always have, at the weekend, we always have a security guard outside, with the main objective keeping, disturbance, eradicating it. But so if we were allowed to stay open an extra hour as well throughout the week, we'd have a door staff on for any night that we were open later, and for preventing any kind of crime basically. So obviously the main objective would be to limit any social disturbance for the neighbours, obviously, but the impact that that will have on the whole street is really beneficial. So it's quite a dark, desolate corner really if we weren't there. And so us just being there, being open, but also having door staff on, means that it's making that corner much safer and preventing much more serious crime. We're also like members of the Pub Watch, Dalston Pub Watch, and we're also on 2 different WhatsApp groups for all the pubs in Dalston, and then also one for Homerton as well. And so we're in constant contact with any other pubs about any antisocial behaviour, so we can all warn each other. So we're all really on the ball with, preventing other nuisances. And we've also got the CCTV system in place, so that's invaluable as well at just like preventing crime. Also for the prevention of public nuisance, we're really happy to have a 24-hour phone number that's available. That would be, if there were any disturbances, it would be activated by sending an email to an address on our website, so then they'd get a mobile number for whoever's on shift, so we can eradicate any disturbances immediately. The outside area, it's now covered with a roof, so that's an extra installation for noise, and also it's on quite a busy street, so there's a lot of ambient traffic noise on that corner anyway, past 11 o'clock at night anyway. It's not like it's on a really quiet residential street. So the protection of children from harm, obviously having door staff on is a real added deterrent for underage minors coming in trying to get served. Obviously we don't let any minors in unattended anyway, and they have to leave by 8 o'clock. And so yeah, all the staff carry out the under 25 proof of ID for anyone who looks under 25. So yes, so I've listed as well in the document the responsibilities of the door staff. I could quickly go through them.
Fine, we've received those.
Okay, cool.
Positions. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, and so obviously there's everything that the door staff do to prevent any disturbances, and then obviously there's the additional things of like not having any music outside. We don't have any recorded music or live music outside. We have the signs up to ensure that people disperse quietly, and yeah, we're really on the ball with just making sure that once the pub closes, everyone is like shepherded really away, and they're like, yeah, they're just moved to make sure they're getting into taxis or making their way to the train station. Because an extra hour as well for the garden. So after 11 o'clock, it's not like there'd be suddenly a big influx of people onto the street, because people obviously would be invited inside to the pub. So at 11 o'clock, they're not ready to leave. They can come inside the pub. And then they'd only be like leaving at our normal closing time anyway. So I don't think it will have a massive impact in terms of like closing time on residents who've not complained in the past. Okay. So yeah, I think. So yes, I think that's us.
Fine, thank you very much. Is there anything colleagues want to ask now for clarification? No. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. In that case, I'll go over to the police representation, please.
Good enough, everyone. So the basis of our representation was the effect that granting this extension may have on the local residents and the public nuisance objective. Now, I've been in talks with Lauren and the Three Compasses, and I've met with them, and there has been some email correspondence as well. Since our issue was that the venue is situated opposite and next to residential premises, and our concern was that granting this for the extra hour, which is past the hours for outdoor areas in the statement of licensing policy, may give rise to nuisance to these residents. We did make a suggestion to Lauren via email that potentially we would be amenable to 10:30 on Fridays and Saturdays, which would allow the garden to clear by 11. But our main concern was through the week when people will have work the next day, and the disturbance that may cause. I wasn't aware that the roof has now been put on the outside area. I don't believe that was there on our last visit, so I believe that is a new addition. We did also discuss for the extension of hours on a Sunday, that if there was an extension of hours past 22:30 hours, that maybe we could look at a condition of any sale of alcohol be ancillary to these film nights and acoustic music evenings. But so our main concern was the negative impact this may have on the local residents being in the close proximity in the external area.
Okay. Thank you. Any clarification, colleagues? No. Okay. Now we have indicated by Lauren that the resident has withdrawn their objection. Mr. Izzo, are you here as the resident objector and want to speak or not? Hello? No? Can I just, Lauren, was that the objector who you said had withdrawn their objection?
We don't know who the objector was.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm not aware that, I mean, I haven't been informed that the objector had withdrawn their objection. So when you said that, I was surprised.
So it was literally only yesterday. But so we have been in email correspondence with, I can't remember her name now at the council. But so, yes, it was literally yesterday.
Okay.
Chair, if you can ask the licensing officer to confirm it then.
Yes, Suba.
I'm not
Sorry?
And just
I'm
to
not-
interject, oh, sorry. I'm a resident. I actually live opposite the bar. So I'm
made
happy.
an objection. Sorry, have you, because
sorry, your objection is related to the next one in the item?
next one.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Myself.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're dealing with the 3 compasses on Dalston Lane at the moment. Okay, Suba, have you had, I believe there was one resident objection, and I believe that came from Mr. Izzo, who identified himself on this call earlier.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
that's right, Chair, and I can't see any corresponding to confirm that he has withdrawn his reps.
Okay, okay, in that case, Mr. Izzo, this is your opportunity to make a representation to this committee. Otherwise, we'll just proceed based on your written, we've received your written thing. I believe there was also a suggestion of from Mr. Izzo for conditions. I don't know if you've seen those.
I think that's the one.
Yeah. And so the conditions that were mentioned were all ones that are obviously like in the document we'd put together as well. So
Yeah.
we replied straight away and said, yeah, we've got no problem having those conditions on the license. That's
Okay,
yeah,
those
yeah.
are either covered already in terms
Yeah.
of music or things
Yeah.
that, and they're pretty much covered already, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Right. Well, in that case, colleagues and police, does anybody want to have anything else to say? Are there more questions that we need to address on this?
Hello,
Hello.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
You can hear me now.
Yes.
You couldn't hear me before.
I think you were muted and not responding.
Okay, now that makes more sense. Okay, first of all, the conditions that the applicant has put are not the same as the conditions that they say they have agreed to now. They're not quite the same. There was all the conditions were the same as in the operating schedule, but they hadn't actually put them as suggested conditions. The suggested conditions they have in their brochure are very different. If they're agreeing to the conditions I've suggested, that's terrific. But I do have some representations to make, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to briefly just comment on the brochure I received from the applicant. I just wanted to set a few things out for you very briefly, if I may. So I'll go ahead.
Yes.
I live on a busy road, and I can tell you, just because it's not quiet in terms of traffic doesn't mean that the quality of the noise from a licensed premises such as this doesn't have an impact. It does have an impact. The quality of the noise, if it's speech or if it's music, is a very different quality from vehicle noise. The applicant mentioned a number of commercial considerations which aren't relevant to your consideration about the licensing objectives. I don't know anything particularly much about this premises, but I can tell you roofs can be very much a double-edged sword in terms that they can actually project noise, deflect noise sideways. So that would be something really that would need to be considered more carefully. I wouldn't automatically assume that a roof will be a protective measure against the prevention of public nuisance. Again, that goes back to the applicant a bit concerned. She's talking about, it's not a quiet residential street. Well, I don't live on a quiet residential street, but licensed premises do have an effect well beyond the fact that not living on a quiet residential street doesn't mean that people have signed up for unlimited amounts of noise. Do have some concerns about the brochure sent to me, as I said. Anything that says about lollipops being handed out is a concern, because essentially it's pretty much a useless gimmick. As for the complaints phone line, well, I can tell you that I don't want to get involved in the management of any licensed premises, and you would have thought that a licensed premises should be able to sort out antisocial behaviour without any intervention from outside. In terms of noise, yeah, I can see it might be of some use, but really what we want is not to be involved with the management of licensed premises at all. We would like licensed premises to prevent public nuisance off their own bat. Bit disturbed to see that the word curfew is used in the dispersal policy. This isn't, occupied France, and the idea of shepherding people away at dispersal, well, that's just basically moving the problem on. There is a real problem with that. Moving the problem on just 50 yards away doesn't really help the people living 50 yards away from the licensed premises. It's very difficult to break up people, make them go home immediately after a social gathering. People want to swap phone numbers and do other things afterwards. So it's really the time that people leave which is really key to preventing nuisance at a late hour. Notwithstanding anything you can put in a dispersal policy, education is very much the key here. The only other thing I'd really want to add, Madam Chairman, is Sundays. There are lower ambient noise levels on Sundays, and people do have the right to get some sleep occasionally. And you're talking about a dispersal here. I mean, licensed until 11, and then dispersal 11:30. Could be midnight on a Sunday at worst. And residents really do without that, and that's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Izzo. Anybody want to ask clarification on that? No. Okay.
Is it okay if I just have a quick response to that?
Yes, we'll move into the discussion. So yes, if
Okay.
you would like to do that, please do.
Just to say, yes, so obviously, so I think the complainant that it doesn't, he mentioned that he doesn't actually know the venue. So I think the point is that obviously we've not had any complaints so far in the 10 years that we've been there. So obviously if we did stay up until 11 in the garden and we did start getting complaints, obviously we'd have no problem then going, either working through it or going back to our original hours. But I think it's unfair to not be granted it or assume that we're going to cause disturbance, because there's no evidence there to say that we would, because we do take it really seriously already. And also with the roof, we do actually have a gap in the roof to ensure that sound doesn't reverberate and be diverted. So there is actually a gap that is for that reason, to make sure that doesn't do it. And also with the shepherding away, we don't just send them down the road to go and bother other neighbours. We are talking to them before they leave and making sure they're getting into taxis. You know, I was there last night after the football, and you know, the doorman and myself and other staff were making sure that people were getting into taxis or going to the bus stop, and that they were on their way home. So yes, we don't just send them down the road to go and disturb other neighbours. Yeah, so I think yeah, that's everything.
Okay, thank you for that. I think in terms of the conditions that Julian put in his email, so that's outside until 11, which is in fact what you've asked for.
Yeah.
Monitoring the noise is the SIA responsibility, no music and dispersal policy. And those are the areas that are covered, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Bell.
Can I just clarify, we've heard some references to use of the roof. What's intended, if anything?
What was that, sorry?
There was some reference, I think, to use of the roof space.
It's the roof.
Oh, no. We were talking about how there is a roof on the garden.
Oh, yes, I expect that was all.
And
Right.
so it's just that could be an added extra to like help noise insulation. But it's, yeah.
So that's my misunderstanding then. Two minor points on the conditions you were suggesting. There's two references to minors. We wouldn't normally put that in a condition, it's the law. And we wouldn't normally put it in the text of
Oh,
condition.
yeah, it was just because I was going through like the
Right, can you stop talking for a second? Let me finish. And the second minor point I was going to make was, you're suggesting a new written dispersal policy condition. You already have one on your license. So we want to amend the existing one rather than have a second one.
Yeah.
I want to amend it to say that a written dispersal policy will be agreed with the police and licensing authority, and then a copy should be kept and produced whenever requested. That's my just 2 points of detail, Chair.
Yeah, is that okay? That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything further? No. I think people really just need a chance to sum up now. We've heard, I think, quite clearly from the only. Yeah, I think that's okay. I just wondered if there was any questions from members to the applicant regarding anything else to do with.
Chair, can we just clarify with the applicant about the hours on the weekday as well as Sunday because of the additional hour? Is that going to affect proposed hours? I think we're going to check on that.
Yes, so what you're asking for, so when it says to remove condition 21, shall not be used after 2200 hours, is that to be amended to 2300 hours?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's specific. So rather than remove, it's actually amend. Could we do that as a, because there isn't anywhere, I don't think there's anywhere else in the license that specifies the use of the outdoors.
Yeah.
So it's not about, it's complicated if we give permission some other way. So if it's okay with you, we would amend that condition if we agree to be 23 rather than. Okay. I think that's.
Sorry, Chair, can I come in when you finish?
Yes, please do. Yes.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your. I don't know if I'm getting a bit of background noise from people. Just two things. I know you mentioned this idea is good that you a diverse pub and you do quite a lot of things that support the community. I heard you around this film on Sundays, but I know you've made a commercial or justification around that extension, but I still believe in terms of that hour on Sunday, because of the film, that even with the film, you can still keep the current hours. And if you are extending on Sunday, what about the weekdays? Why is the extension on the weekdays? I know you said because you want to have put up a film on Sunday. What about Monday to Saturday?
We're happy with the hours that we have during the week. I think we just mentioned that on the Sunday is because, like we were saying, because we can't do a roast, and our Sundays evenings are quiet. We just came up with the ideas, of films, and that's the reason why it's specifically for the Sunday that we asked to be open when we have events up until 11:30.
Is that okay, Councillor?
It's okay, but if it's just the film, I think the other thing is you've mentioned as well as the film, then the supply of alcohol consumption for those extended hours as well.
Yeah. So if we had the film, and then we'd have afterwards like a Q&A, and so obviously we'd want to carry on serving up until we close, because otherwise we wouldn't be making any more money. So obviously to make it viable as a business, we just want to, we'd actually want to serve until we close.
Okay. Yeah, that's the bell.
Can I just clarify? The Q&A and the films would take place inside the pub area.
Yes,
Of course, yeah.
And gardening would be spilling out afterwards.
Would people be coming? Sorry, what was the question?
People would then have the option of coming out afterwards into the garden area after the.
No. So then we'd close. So we'd close at 11:30, and then obviously the garden would already be closed.
Yeah, because we were like for the Sunday, the 11:30 is for inside.
Yeah.
And then if we're granted the 11 o'clock license outside, then that would still be in place. But we'd still be able to serve inside on those nights, on those events on Sunday till 11:30.
But the garden would always close at whatever time.
Yeah.
So at the minute it's 10, and if it is granted to be 11,
It would
on
be
a
11.
Sunday we'd still shut at 11 in the garden.
The problem we have is we have an adopted policy that outside areas normally close at 2200, and that's our borough-wide policy. And you have to convince us to make an exception to that. And if the outside area isn't actually part of the event taking place, then it's quite a weak argument for an exception. So I'm giving you the opportunity to make another argument if you've got one for an exception to our policy on use of outside areas. It's laid out in the police objection in particular, if you haven't already seen it.
So are we just talking about Sundays now?
No, we're talking about the extension to the outside area. Our policy on outside areas is normally earlier than 11 o'clock at night.
Yes. Yeah.
So that we need from you a reason. I think what you said was that in the summer people were sitting outside and not coming inside, and that therefore they left when the garden closed at 10, because there were other places. The other places, do they have outside drinking later?
Oh yes, so that's what I'm talking about. So the other places are open later, but also you can drink outside until 11. So at the Victoria, the seating out on the front, you can drink outside there until 11. And then at Ridley Road Market Bar around the corner, it's only the outside that I'm talking about. Yeah, it's open till 11.
Okay, so at a time when people are wanting outside drinking, I mean, this is not a licensing argument, it is still an economic argument, but
Yeah.
that is the argument that you are making in terms of it being outside of our policy. But what you're saying is there are other local places outside of the policy, and people are shifting around in order to make use of those. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Councillor Bell?
It doesn't really give me enough grounds personally to make exception to the policy. We don't know for certain what all premises exist and what hours outside they have. And even if we did, would it be enough for us to make an exception at this location for this premises?
Okay.
I still personally need a stronger argument.
But then I guess what I could say is that, with the the year and a half that's just passed, and COVID being, it's gonna be the people were saying, people wanting to feel safe. At the moment, it just remains that, well, they very much feel safer when when they are outside. So that means that even though we could have them inside, that extra hour could is also for us, I don't know, it's just also allows just our customers just to drink, let's say, till 11 and feel safe, have, I guess, be on the outside. And that's the world that we live in right now, that we also try to accommodate. And because then, well, that's, yeah, we are, this is our life. So we're just trying to, I don't know, we're just trying to make it, and to still, I don't know, to still be open. And and an extra hour is, doesn't seem to us that we, it seems like a reasonable demand. And yes, we are competing against 2 other venues, and well, that is also, that is also our reality, and that's pretty much whether we can stay open or not ultimately. So this is why we're asking for that extension.
One possibility might be, Councillor Bell, that we time limit this to make it. I'm not sure whether our legal officer will support that, though, because I think we're not supposed to do.
We haven't put. It's not been set out in the application, or it's not been proposed in advance. So it may be something, unless the applicant's agreeable to it being time limited. So if they're agreeing to it, then fine, but it hasn't been set out in advance in terms of, I don't know if the police or any other parties would have wanted to be consulted on it. On the time limited.
Do the police have any view on this? We haven't heard back from you regarding any of this.
Hi, Chair. Not necessarily objected to time limited. Our main concern was the extension of hours during the week, being residential, and the disturbance it may cause for people who have work the next day.
Yeah. Okay.
Chair, can I just raise a couple of quick points just to check as you go along? Is that with the proposed extension of time, what is the drinking up period then on the Sunday? Can that be clarified? And also, I don't know if I'm wrong in asking about this, but there's some non-standard hours until on the New Year's Eve bit, and I don't know whether or not that's part of what they're seeking as well, or because I don't think that's on the current license, or is it? I don't know if the licensing officer can confirm if the non-standard hours were part of the existing license, or that's something which is part of this application to be considered.
Okay, first thing is the drinking up time. If Lauren, if you could address that for us. Yeah.
Normally, we allow 20 minutes drinking up time.
So you've actually asked on Sunday for supply of alcohol till 11:30 and opening hours till 11:30.
Oh, right, okay. So yeah, so that would be negotiable, really. So
would there be less order on? Like 10:11, and then people leave by 11:30.
Yeah. So if we served alcohol till 10:11.
Okay.
On those specific nights, we're not. Yeah.
Okay, so we're adjusting your application to supply of alcohol on sales on the Sunday, this is, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Till 23:10 and close by 23:30.
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay, now the other thing raised by the police, sorry, it's gone out of my mind.
The New Year's Eve,
Yes,
apply for that to be that we could close later on New Year's Eve. And I think because there was no objections to that from the police or any residents, that's not been.
Chair, can you double check that with the police, please?
Yeah, sorry, is this in the application then? So this is in the application but hasn't been picked up. I can't see it in the application now.
Sorry, Chair, that request is part of the opening hours, the New Year's Eve condition.
Oh, there, sorry. Yes, it is, it's there.
Chair, if I may, I think that might be a notice on my part. Usually we would ask for temporary event notice on a New Year's Eve. It just allows us to plan our resources and risk assess events, so we can get a better idea of what resources are needed on it, even because it is quite a drain on resources on New Year's Eve. Bear in mind the number of licensed premises we do have in the area.
Is that what you currently do through Compasses?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, it is normal for the police to request that people do it on temporary event notices.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, legal officer, if we haven't had a formal objection.
We haven't had any objections to it, but normally the non-standard hours are removed unless the police say that they're in agreement with it. So Mr. PC Atkins has confirmed that he wants a temporary event notice instead.
Okay, so I think that one is probably therefore lost. I'm not quite sure that I understood that as a policy, but nevertheless, I think that's the situation. Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to raise? And do we have?
We need to hear from the applicant about the possibility of time limited license.
Yeah. If we were to time limit this, say for 6 months over the summer to see how it goes, both in terms of the outside and the Sunday, really, because the objection is policy based and public nuisance, and that would give people an opportunity to complain and then licensing an opportunity not to continue it in those circumstances. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. So if it's time limited, so say for like 6 months, after the 6 months, if there are no objections, is it then granted permanently? How does that work?
No idea.
I'm afraid not.
They'd have to reapply.
Yeah.
They'd have to apply again.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, because it's quite an expensive process, because we have to pay the council and then pay for the advert as well. So I think it costs about £500-600 in total. So ideally, obviously, we wouldn't, because it's quite a lot to pay out to do it. But so.
Okay. Ideally not, but presumably
it would be better than nothing, but yeah, not ideal.
I mean, you'll appreciate this is difficult territory for us because, you know, the COVID thing does push people to more outside. So that to that extent, our policy predates COVID. So there is an argument to be made there on your part, but at the same time, we're not just going to blanketly let everybody walk outside forever, whatever the circumstances. So we have to look at each case, and we'll explore this in our discussions.
Thank you.
Chair, can I come in terms of after hours and the patrons dispersal? I haven't really heard anything convincing. In most cases, what happened is actually not about the premises around neighbors around the negative impact of an extended hours of a premises like this. It's majority of what happened in a residential area is when people are going, when the patrons are going home or after the after 11:30, that is the coming out of the pub. I've not really heard the way you manage that, in terms of people dispersing, being cautious that you are in a residential area, the impact of on residents while they're going out without being going in order and getting into a taxi or going home and walking down the street at that hours of the night.
So was the question like how like physically do we manage the dispersal?
That is the question, and importantly, what sort of messaging do you have for your patrons when they're leaving the premises?
Yes, so the message is obviously to just not cause any disturbance and to leave quietly. But so in the document I put together, we like list how we do that and what the procedure is. So I can talk you through it if you would you like me to?
Yeah, I have seen that, I read that, but having said that, on your part, that's what you do. But people that visit the premises, why it's important for you to send them those messages and guidance. It is a different thing when they're out there, and that is where the problem is.
Okay.
Constituting that nuisance to.
Susan, I appreciate what you're saying, and we can discuss this point, but actually the pub is open until midnight on two other weeknights, and we haven't had any complaints. So I'm not going to ask the applicant to go over this again. She has written, and as I say, the pub is managing that at later hours on working nights. Currently, we have no evidence from the police that there's a problem either with this premises. So I think we just need to be a bit careful in terms of going over ground here. Okay, so it's really for time because we've got the evidence here. We can look at it in the discussion afterwards. Is there anything else we want to clarify before we close this item? Is that and do people, Councillor Bell?
Just for absolute clarity, did the applicant say they would rather a time limit license than it to be refused?
We'd rather it than it be diffused, but so than it be refused. Sorry, but so yes, but in an ideal world, we'd be able to like if it was permanent. But obviously, if we did get complaints, then it would go back to the original hours.
And just to raise this in the public session, because we will discuss it in the private session, Councillor Plivy referred to a 6 month, but other times are possible as well, including a year or so. It's your longer period to prove yourselves and a longer period before you need to go through the expense of reapplying.
Yes. That'd be. Yeah. Thank you. That'd be yes.
Yeah.
Ideally, yeah. If it could be longer, that if it's going to be time limited, then yes.
Yeah.
It could be. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Do you have anything else you wish to say from Lauren Three Compasses to sum up?
No, I think just that, as you said, that obviously the fact that we're open till 12:30 at the weekends already, and 12 on some of the nights in the week, and so it's not going to be lots of extra people coming out onto the streets and dispersing later. It's literally going to be this contained space, like within our garden, that will be the only difference. Okay.
Yes, and then maybe one last thing, considering that we haven't had a complaint pretty much in 10 years, so we'd like to be given the chance to prove that we can do that, because I don't know, this is, this is one of our priorities, while trading is also, just being considerate of our surroundings. So I'd like to be given the chance to prove that again.
And the security staff that we pay as well, it's obviously quite an expense. And we've had that for 10 years. We've paid security staff for a small venue, and we don't have any fights or any issues, or the only reason we pay these security staff is to make sure that our residents are happy and that there's no noise outside. So it's obviously something we take really seriously and we pay for already.
Okay. Thanks for that. Amanda, did you?
Just a quick point, just to make sure members are satisfied they have all the information they need. The police said that their main concern was have the impact on local residents. Do you feel you've had sufficient information to confirm how the premises deal with the local residents? I know there have been no complaints, but are you satisfied you have all the information there to address that?
Colleagues, I am, but if you have, I think we're okay. Thanks, Amanda. Over to the police for any summing up you wish to make or final comments.
Chair, I think all our concerns have been discussed. Sorry, I don't think we've got anything further to add other than what we already said.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Izzo, is there anything you wish to add, or I mean not add, sorry, you wish to not add, but sum up?
Yes, Madam Chair. Basically, just a couple of things. I'd just like to say I do know the premises. I'd like to say that the applicant, the burden of proof is on the applicant to make out the case here. I don't believe the applicant's actually done that. The commercial considerations are irrelevant. I haven't really seen any evidence that the proposal will promote the licensing objectives. Taxis can be very noisy with doors slamming, irrespective. I mean, they're not a panacea to a problem. They can cause problems. And I don't think that basically the application isn't well thought out or made out. And
sorry, Mr. Izzo, you're making new comments. The commenting on the application is a new point. So if you, I understand that what you're saying is that your objections still stand. Is that okay?
Rephrase that. I'll just say that the representations made by the applicant during the meeting weren't well made out to support the case.
Sure.
And personally, I don't think time limits are of any help to anyone. The good behaviour, I don't think that basically if you give a time limited, that's pretty much it. And I think the applicant knows that. I think you know that as well. And that will be the end of that. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in that case, I think we're done with that item. Thank you very much for attending, and you will get our decision when we've made it as soon as possible. And we'll move on now to the next item.
Lovely. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Chair, before we proceed, I mean, Mr. Murcott's obviously chosen to put a backdrop of the council chamber and the speaker's chair behind himself. And while I'm not suggesting that's illegal, it is very misleading. People tuning in could well be under misapprehension that he's a council officer or member. So could I ask him to take it down, please?
That's fair enough. A point fairly made. Thank you, Councillor Bell. Okay, as we go on to the next item, which is an application by the premises Rolling Stock for a variation. Can we just ask the people who are here for this item to introduce themselves? So that's for Rolling Stock. We have.
I'm Sean Murcott. the acoustic consultant licensing agent representing Rolling Stock for this afternoon.
Okay. So you're speaking as the licensing agent on their behalf for the application. Okay. And we have the applicant.
Yeah, Byron Evans.
Okay. Thank you. And then we have other persons for this item. So we have Lexi Mills. Hello.
Hi.
Are you objecting? Can everybody please mute themselves if they're not, if I'm not addressing you, not speaking? Thank you. Lexi Mills. Hello.
Hi.
Are you an objector to this application?
No, I live
You're-
I'm endorsing it. I'm endorsing it.
So you're another person in support, or are you part of?
In support.
Okay. And do you wish to make a verbal representation to the meeting?
I would like to, yes.
Yeah.
Just let me know when it's appropriate.
I will. I'll call you. Thank you. We also have William Fairman. Are you? Hello.
Hello. Yes, I'm a local resident. I'm objecting to the application.
Okay. Thank you. Baz Ali, are you the IT person or?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Baz here. Yeah, I'm in support of the application. I'm a local resident living directly opposite the premises.
Okay, so that's a supporter, and you wish to speak as well for?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And Maria.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm one of the owners at Cotton's Gardens and I'm objecting.
Okay. And you wish to speak?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay, cool. Now, then we have David Tuitt for licensing, representing licensing, objecting, I believe. And is there anybody I've missed out who wishes to address the committee during this hearing on this issue? No. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. All right, well, in that case, I'll ask Suba, please, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing service are in receipt of an application for variation of premises license under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 for rolling stock, 46 to 48 Kingsland Road, 431 to 434 Kingsland Viaduct, 1 to 3 Cotton's Garden, to allow unrestricted use of the gate from the side road of the Cotton's Garden into the courtyard, to authorize the supply of alcohol for own sales for the outside of the courtyard, and to amend conditions 30 and 31. Police have withdrawn their representation on the basis that they are satisfied that this variation will not undermine the licensing objectives. Representation remains from licensing and other persons. The applicant has submitted additional information which has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any points for clarification on that? Can I just ask, is this variation, has this variation been in effect already, or some parts of it? Licensing officer, maybe we can clarify that from the applicant. Okay. Okay, in that case, we'll go over to hear from the applicant for this, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. This application has been effectively tested for 6 months, and it was given temporary permission, which expires in September. And by and large, it's been very successful. The hours requested are not excessive for the garden. They were originally till 11 o'clock on Thursday, Friday and Saturday night, and till 10 o'clock the rest of the week. Now, the applicant has been in close liaison over the last 6 months with most of the residents in the area and has established a good rapport. And they've made lots of suggestions over the last few months about extra security, extra cameras, changing the queue round, keeping an eye on keeping the noise down, lots of issues, and these have all been implemented quite successfully. The main, looking through the objectors letters, the main thing is noise and disturbance. Now, we had a good discussion with the noise officer from the local authority, and he suggested that the hours were perhaps a little excessive in that area, and that he would be much more comfortable, let's say, with reducing the hours. So the hours were then reduced by 1 hour till 10 o'clock on Friday and Saturday night. And this actually brings it in line with the council policy for external areas comfortably. We then had meetings with the police and meetings with David Chewett from licensing. The police have been monitoring the situation carefully. Tens have been issued, the license has been working for the last 6 months, sorry, the variation for the garden area, and they have now withdrawn their representations and have also said that it's not likely to lead to cumulative impact, and they're happy with the situation. When we had a visit on site with David Chewett, he raised quite a few suggestions, let's say, which were very helpful. One of which was the reverberation of sound in the garden. The garden area has, most of it is out of sight from the residents, but tucked away to the right is an area faced with 3 brick walls, which was quite reverberant. And he suggested some acoustic treatment. That acoustic treatment was put in place the very next day. So that was sorted out. And acoustic treatment was also spread around the ceiling area, but of course you have to be mindful of the COVID regulations and regulations for sufficient fresh air so that you can still smoke out there. Another suggestion was an acoustic barrier between the residents and the garden. You're allowed to go to 2.5 meters without specifically applying for planning permission, so that's already been started. Quotes have been asked from contractors, and again this would be faced with acoustic material. So half the garden that the residents can already see would then be out of sight and acoustically screened. David also came up with some suggestions for the egress, and with the COVID regulations in place, it was very difficult to arrange egress through the main club because it's at least 30 meters. There was also fire implications as well. And the result from that was that after much discussion and thinking, the applicant has considered that for Sunday to Thursday, he can actually arrange egress through the main club in line with David Chewett's suggestion. On the Friday and Saturday night, that would be difficult because it actually conflicts with the queuing for the main club and the patrons that are already in the main club. In other words, you'd have 2 different sets of people, some that have paid to go in the club, others that have been in the garden, all mixing up, and it's there's all sorts of safety implications for that as well in terms of searching and who's not being searched and who's coming in. So that's the situation at the moment. So there's been a lot of concessions and a lot of liaising with the residents so far. And those that Byron is in touch with, we have 3 residents that live directly opposite, overlooking the gardens, that have written very good letters of support, showing what he's put in place and what he's prepared to do, and generally encouraging the application in terms of noise, security, litter, keeping the place safe, and operating a well-run and safe beer garden. There's a few letters of objection. Of course, we can't see the names or their addresses. It's just Cotton Gardens. I understand there's about 20 residents live opposite, and about 8 flats. So to get 3 letters of support out of 8 flats is quite constructive. The last document I think you may have, it's not on my agenda, but it was written in reply to David Tuitt, which I can go through in more detail. But essentially it sums up, I'll do it very briefly. Since your visit, this is with David, improved CCT coverage and cameras. So there is now a system where the police and the licensing authority, in fact, any responsible authority, can ask for CCTV coverage of the ingress and egress for any of the cameras on site with a couple of hours notice. It just needs, someone needs to go to the computer and download it. There's improved signage, there's acoustic treatment, there's the acoustic barrier wall, and there's also the new system of egress through the main club. The other thing in summary is the capacity of the beer garden is somewhere between 100 and 150. It serves food, it's all seated, there's no stand-up, no vertical drinking, no dancing area, no regulated entertainment, no music. But there's also 3 SIA door supervisors plus 2 managers on duty from 7 o'clock till 10:30 when the garden's in operation at the weekends. Now that is a ratio of about 1 to 30, which is considerable. In other words, the beer garden is very well supervised and very well managed. And that's probably why you've got letters of support from the residents and you've got no opposition from the police and no opposition from the noise team. In summary to that, the applicant is willing to accept all those conditions that we've outlined there in that document as a reply to David Tuitt as conditions, should that be necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any points of clarification from colleagues? Councillor Bell.
Mr. Market, just can I be entirely clear about the area that we've been asked to license under this? I'm not sure I am, perhaps all the members are. The area that's, there's a plan attached to the current license. It'd be page 15 of the license, if you have it up.
Okay, I can.
Is the area we're talking about within that plan or is it beyond it?
It's unfortunately when you print this off, it doesn't come with any door numbers, plan numbers.
It would be the last page of the current license. I think it's 15 pages off the top.
The best one to look at is Appendix E, which is the Ordnance Survey map. Has everyone found that?
Yeah.
Appendix E.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other map's next to it in my copy.
Well, Appendix E, there's a blue blob, and that is the entrance where the gates are. Now, the garden area is that bit in the very pale colour to the north of Cotton Gardens. The railway line goes over the top, which is in the darker green, and the yellow is the actual building of the main club. That's probably the easiest way to identify which is the beer garden.
Unfortunately, my copy of that's in black and white.
No,
is it possible? Sorry. Is it possible to pull that out? Sabine, would that be possible?
Yeah, I can do it. Is it okay, Chair?
Sorry, what are we being asked?
Councillor Susan wants to see whether we can show that Appendix E. So is
Yeah.
it okay if I can present it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That one that you're holding up is very much out of date. That's the old historical copy on the license, and it's got things like elevated stage and outside toilets and all sorts. That has completely changed.
So you need to update that. It doesn't reflect the current operation.
Councillor, if I could just come in there, because I'm just looking at the
That would be good.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the plan, which is at the end of just before Appendix E, as you mentioned, Councillor Bell. I think having fairly recently visited that site, as Mr. Murkett has said, the internal part of the premises is reflected in that drawing as it is now. But the external part of the site, which is effectively what this application is about, isn't really shown on this plan. But I do know that we do have a plan. You have to excuse us, just post cyber attack, some of our records, and maybe the officer who drafted this wasn't able to locate the correct plan. But we do have a plan of the site with the garden shown and its and how it relates to Cotton's Garden. So if you're looking at this plan in its current orientation, the garden area is just to the bottom of that drawing, if you like, to the bottom of the page.
Yeah. So that would correlate with what we were told about on the map, which is in the agenda, the next page, which we only have in black and white. But can I just check, perhaps with Mr. Murkett, that on that map, the inside part of rolling stock is the darker area under the railway arches between Waterson Street and Cotton Gardens, and there's a lighter bit, funny shape, and that's the
correct.
lighter bit is the garden.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's the area immediately to the northeast of that blue square.
Yeah.
That's strange. Mine's come out in colour, oddly enough, but yours is black and white.
So the square on ours is a dark black square, and we have so colleagues, are you happy with that? Whoever asked about the
Yes,
we can see now that there's
layout.
Yeah, and that's obviously it's the beer garden relates more to Cotton's Gardens than the actual venue, which is more on the Waterson Street side of that block. Yeah, great, that's it, perfect, thank you, whoever's put that up. Okay, right, Mr. Murkett, we finished, haven't you? You finished making your representation, and we had that clarification on the venue. Is there any other clarification we want before I go over to? No? Then in that case, David Tuitt, please, your representation.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the representation I made is in today's agenda at Appendix B2, and essentially it's a representation on the grounds of the prevention of public nuisance. So the applicant has sought a number of changes, but I guess our main concern really is the permanent use of the side gate in Cotton's Gardens for access, and this is due to complaints that we've received since it's been in operation from local residents. So as I've mentioned in the report and in the representation, access is currently permitted until the end of September this year, the 30th, and that was approved by a minor variation. We actually had a similar minor variation. I think we received it last summer, which was approved until 31st of October. So there's been a while that access via this route has been possible. I should just add a brief backstory to that. The reason for it being approved by minor variation is the government minister for DCLG wrote to councils essentially asking us to assist hospitality trade in the pandemic recovery. So as a result of that, you would have seen the Business and Planning Act. My colleagues over in planning had to make provision for use of outdoor areas. Our colleagues in the market service also introduced pavement licenses. So quite a lot of activity that we had to carry out essentially to help the hospitality trade recover from the pandemic closures. So that was the reason for the minor variation, but also the reason for it being temporary. However, as you can see, that this has caused some concern for residents, but I do note that there is also support from residents. As Mr. Murkett said, I met with him and Mr. Knight, the applicant, on the 26th of May at the site, where we looked at a number of things, some potential options, as you've heard about access through the site, additional conditions, noise mitigation measures. I was shown CCTV footage where you could see patrons arriving, SIE checking them in, showing them to tables, doing the various COVID requirements around scanning into premises, etc. We discussed those measures as Mr. Murcutt has made reference to. However, my representation is still here, so I don't feel I've been able to withdraw it, simply because, as no doubt you'll hear from local residents, that there are some negative impacts as a result of this activity and the access to the gate and the use of the garden. So it's on that basis that I maintain the representation. I also believe that there are some planning restrictions around the use of the garden and the hours of use and the access to the garden. So that is something, if you're minded to grant that is something that the applicant would also have to address. But so I'll just leave it there for now, and we can discuss this further in the discussion phase. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any points of clarification, colleagues? Nope. Okay. Okay. In that case, I propose we hear from the two residents who are in favour first. So perhaps Lexi Mills, would you like to speak next?
Sure, I'm very happy to. Are you happy for me to go ahead now?
Yes, yes.
Sure. So I live right opposite the bar. My bedrooms overlook the bar. I've never had any problems with noise. In fact, I would argue that the noise is lower. So I've been here a year. When that garden isn't open, lots of people drive down the street, park their cars right outside my door. They loiter outside their cars with music blaring. I cannot get out of my building or in. I used to be really frightened. I used to get quite intimidated with, kids that don't look, I say kids, I feel old now, young adults who don't look completely sober, intimidating me coming in and out. With the beer garden there, I've not had that problem once. The security are so polite. I feel so much safer with them there. And I've had no issues of any description. The street is cleaner. People are better behaved. I've never been frightened coming in and out of my house since it was there. But if it was gone, I might have to reconsider whether I felt safe walking down the street late at night coming into my door. And even sometimes during the day, I felt intimidated. So I don't know what my solution would be. And, I live alone. I'm actually, I don't know if it shows, but I'm a very tiny human. I don't feel like there's another option to keep that area safe. And the noise, it's just not the issue. The noise for me comes from the other side, what you can see behind me.
Okay. Okay. That's very clear. Is there anything else you want to add? That's it? That's fine. That's fine.
If they've got questions, I'm happy to answer them. I look
Any
over
clarification? Colleagues, are we happy with that? Okay. Right, I will go on to the other positive supporter, which is Baz Ali. We could hear from you now, please.
Hi everyone. Yeah, just kind of echoing on Lexi's points. So I live on flat 4B, so it's kind of pretty much one level above Rolling Stock Garden. Directly opposite is both our doors actually. And I've been at the property just over a year now. My wife and I have been threatened twice on our doorstep, just trying to get into our door when coming home in the evening. And this is, let's just say, 11, 12 o'clock, because as Lexi put it, a lot of people spill over onto Cotton's gardens. And at one point I was like, I need to move, especially since my wife is pregnant as well. So it's a kind of a huge kind of security risk for us. Ever since the side entrance opened up with the security guards there, they know us by name. They go out of their way to make sure we're okay. to the point that they've even said that if there's ever any issues, just call us, come to us. We feel a lot safer, a lot more secure. Again, same points as Lexi. In terms of the noise, both my wife and I, we work in IT. We work full time, working from home, as a lot of people I can see here, due to COVID. And I have not found the noise be an issue, nor there be any music, nor anything like that that's kind of caused me or my wife to have issues in kind of conducting our normal life and actually, doing our work. In fact, the side which is noisy is the main road, which has the music, which has most of the noise, which has the motorbikes and the cars that go under the bridge and the train, which is crazy loud. In fact, it's harder to work on that side of my flat than it is on the side where my living room is, which is kind of closest to rolling stock. So we typically, when we've got meetings, we go to the other side of the flat simply because the main road is just really loud. So I kind of don't understand, or I don't see how the noise, which I don't really feel, but that's subjective to me, can be an issue. And also I don't understand why the addition of the entrance with the security isn't actually a good thing for our streets, for anyone that's living alone, with kids, with family. It's definitely something that's
I don't want to you're sort of repeating what you've said already.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sure.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just the time element. Thank you very much. That's very clear, and we can ask questions if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I have also William Fairman. Would you like to speak next?
Yes, hello, thank you. Our main representation against this has always been about the use of the side gate, which was traditionally for emergency and disabled access only. Anyone who has lived down this street for longer than a year will know that it does suffer from the general sort of human traffic of around the area. We live in Shoreditch, we're used to that. What we don't need is to actively encourage further groups of crowds to be queuing up outside that venue. They've tried different ways, queuing down the street, queuing up the street. Either way, it causes, considerable addition of human traffic to an already narrow dead-end street, which is primarily residential. And despite the security, David has received plenty of evidence to show that the point of access has encouraged urination. It's encouraged, consumption of whether it's like laughing gas outside our property, sat on our doorstep. It has increased the amount of unwanted activity down our street. It hasn't reduced it, it's increased it. And actually also the presence of the security guards is completely inconsistent. It's not regular, it's not there all the time, and especially in recent times it's in fact been non-existent on some days. I've seen their management struggle with having to stop people spilling out of the gate down the street as they are doing things that are clearly harmful to the reputation of the bar, but they can't control it because I don't know why, but the general management hasn't been able to eradicate any further disturbance caused by the entrance and exit point on Cotton's Gardens. It's an entirely inappropriate permanent addition. We understand why it was granted. It was granted in times of COVID. It was granted because their access point via the Kingsland Road entrance was difficult. However, that is soon to become not a relevant factor. Therefore, it stands to reason that the gate access point should revert back to what it was. It was emergency and disabled use only. The idea that the that the security guards are there for the sort of public residents' benefit, I don't think that we shouldn't have to rely on security guards from a private venue to stop other things happening. And I think actually we all know that that stuff will continue down here regardless. It's not their business whether some other person who isn't entering their club is coming down here to make noises. It's not their job to get involved in that. So I don't really see how that stands up. In relation to where the support is coming from, it's, you know, that's a completely different building, completely different soundproofed windows. To say that you can't hear it, I would say I'm very pleased for you that you can't hear it in your building. From where we are, this street, the buildings, the noise pinballs around. It's an echo chamber that we hear, especially since not just the Euro Football Championship, the Champions League matches starting early. It's effectively been a beer and football garden. That I do have 2 young children. They go to bed at 7 o'clock. That has been heavily impacted on by, at the beginning, pretty much unrestricted and unregulated showing football. I accept that has since been well, they stopped showing the rest of the Champions League, and the football, admittedly, during the Euros has been tempered as well. But I can only assume that's because they didn't want to draw any more attention to the fact that packing that beer garden outside was only resulting in massive disruption for the local residents. So to clarify, our main point is about the access on Cotton's Gardens. We accept that the venue has taken steps or will take some steps to limit the acoustics. We're not trying to get anywhere shut down, but we are trying to limit the inappropriate use of an entrance and exit point on a street which is entirely not suitable for that. And they already have another entrance which is now viable for them to use.
Okay, thank you for that. Any clarifications? No, okay. In that case, we'll go over to Marija.
Yes, hi there, hi.
Hi.
Yes, so the representation, I wasn't going to speak up, but there has been recent aggressive behavior, which I wasn't very fond to hear, also that has taken place in front of children between someone that's running the premises and someone who lives there. So that changed my mind. So yes, I have owned the place for 13 years, and each year has seen it deteriorating and deteriorating. What's happening around the drinking culture, unfortunately, you know, this culture, the nightclub culture, drinking culture, and you know, I also wanted to bring forward some of the facts that were just represented by Mr. Merket. So we all looked at a document now shared on the screen, and actually there are not 10 flats. I don't know where this information is from. There are 4 flats in our building, but there are 10 blocks. I counted them while we were looking at the screen now together, the shared screen. Also, I'm confused about the report showing the document, the report of Group Director, Neighborhoods and Housing. It shows opening hours of the premises, 11 to 9, Monday to Wednesday, and then Thursday to Saturday till 10 o'clock, and then Sunday to 9. And I opened about page on the Rolling Stone website, as we are on the call now, where the garden opening hours are advertised until 10 p.m. every evening. So there is a problem with factual information here.
I think this is to do with just to intervene because the hours in the. I'm going to have to ask you to mute yourself. Marie, have you finished your? Is there anything else you want to add? If you want to clarify the hours.
Yes, so basically just the same as Mr. Fairman before. The use of the gate. There is an entrance to the premises. I'm not against anyone running commercial business, but when it's disrupting so many residents on the road, then yes, it attracts more crowd, and the crowd gathering, it's already very problematic in the area. Levels of noise, urinating on the doorsteps. I mean, yeah, we don't need any more of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your representations. Are there any clarifications for the last one, colleagues? No.
I would just like to add something, if that's okay. Just in terms of noise, I actually sleep with my windows open, so I understand there was there would be a difference if people had double glazing or triple glazing, but I sleep with all my windows open because my apartment gets hot. So I don't feel like the double glazing has an argument.
Okay.
The venue's closed.
Please don't. Please. I'm sorry. It's not helpful if we have just a general melee, and it's not actually terribly helpful to comment on other people's representations. People live in different apartments. They have different experiences, and we hear them all individually. So your experience is one experience, other people's are other people's, but we don't need to hear your view on somebody else's experience, if you don't mind, if that makes sense.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you very much. I think I just wanted to clarify for the last the document that says the opening out of the courtyard are till 9 o'clock. That is the application. So the applicant has pulled the time back by an hour. I think, is that right, Mr. Murcutt? I'm right. It's an hour through the weekend, and I'm not sure about. It's 10 o'clock Friday and Saturday. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock Friday and Saturday, and 9 o'clock during the week.
Is the application?
I think the existing hours under the permission till September might be slightly different, which might give rise to a bit of confusion. But
do we know what those hours are? Because that's the information that I don't have. We've got temporary event notice information, but I haven't located the information about the current permission. Perhaps Mr. Evans Byron, you could help us with the current hours permitted under the COVID.
Yeah, the hours, they should be the same as they was prior. It's just the access for the gate being open.
So you currently have opening hours of the courtyard area till 9 o'clock on Sunday to Thursday, Sunday to Wednesday 9 o'clock, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday 10 p.m.
Sunday's 10 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is 7:30, and then Thursday till Saturday is 10.
Okay. Okay, so that's under the temporary permission.
Yes.
Okay.
We've been running 10s on Tuesday and Wednesdays, which have currently run out. So we've been closing.
Oh, so that's why it's been 10 o'clock there.
Yeah. For the last 2 weeks, we haven't had any 10s. So that's why we've been closing earlier. But yeah, prior to that, for the last 12 weeks, we've been running 10s. So that will count for the times online.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair, but one of the objectives is putting messages in the box, and
yeah,
please
don't. We won't pay any attention to things written in the chat. The chat is only for IT issues, communications issues. It's not for communicating with the committee. You have to put your hand up and talk to the chair. And we're in the discussion phase now, so anybody who wants to make a point, please put your hand up, either wave or put the hand up on the thing, and yeah, don't put it in the chat. Mr. Murkett.
There's been quite a lot of talk of noise disturbance and urination and all sorts on the streets. Could I ask David if there's been any formal complaints to noise or the police? Because as far as I understand, there's been no substantiated evidence of noise complaints or public disorder complaints or aggressive behaviour, to the best of my knowledge, and they've both withdrawn their objections. And I fail to see how the effect of a gate is inappropriate. If you've got a beer garden with 150 people, whether or not the gate is open or closed seems to be rather neither here nor there. It just makes ingress and egress easier. Now, the second point I can point out is that the gate is a distance of about 4 meters from Kingsland Road. That is about 6 or 8 paces that the public walk from Kingsland Road, which is incredibly busy, to get to the gate, and the queue is in that direction. That was changed fairly early on when it made sense to have the queue perhaps in Cotton Gardens because it could be monitored safely, but it was obviously disturbing the residents, so that was changed round. So it's difficult without a scale map, but it is a very, very short distance from an incredibly busy street actually to the opening of the gate.
So I was just going to ask about that, actually. The residents mentioned queuing, and the courtyard is open 11 o'clock until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, depending, or 7 o'clock, varying hours. I'm not quite clear that I understand why there would be queuing and when there would be queuing.
Perhaps the applicant can explain the situation with the queue and the numbers of the queue, and what would typically be happening.
Yeah, when we reopened, we did suggest to have the queue going down Cotton's Gardens, but the closest building to us, which is an architect's or graphic design studio, Henrik, suggested maybe there was a few too many people near his building, so we swapped it. That still didn't work. So what we've actually done now is we've allocated an area of the garden where people don't actually queue on the street. They're actually queuing on the premises, and you know, up to groups of 6 only at a table. So there's no more than up to 20 people in the queue at one time. But that queue is actually on our premises, not on the street. So people are walking straight into the venue.
Okay, so the queues happen at certain times of the evening, presumably, when you're full. Why are there queues?
Well, the queue for the moment, the queue for the moment is mainly because of the QR code, the QR code for the COVID app. That's holding back the queue. Otherwise, people would just be walking straight in, bookings on the iPad, and would be walked straight to a table. But because of the COVID app, it is actually slowing down customers on entry.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask about the queuing. William, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's just to say that they've both acknowledged in their last representations that Cotton's Gardens has no appropriate area for any congregation of anybody. The inside the venue queuing area that they talk about is still only at the very entrance of it. It's literally just off the sidewalk. It's not in some other area where it's not visible or audible to us. So, you know, they've already said they tried doing it one way down the street, and I'm surprised that they'd even admit that, because that just clearly shows a complete disregard for their neighbours, for what might cause issues in the first place. So they've had to pivot on each sort of bad call to try and find a solution to make the best use of that gate. And you mentioned the 8 paces. Well, that should make it really easy to manage your patrons and which way out they go and whether they're turning left or right. And if they're turning left, they're coming down to urinate between our cars, on our doorways, to do laughing gas. And, you know, David has received many representations from me. Our complaints go to David because he has been presented as the person that we make noise complaints to and other complaints. So those complaints aren't not being made; they're being made to David.
Okay.
So
perhaps we can hear from
that.
Okay, thanks. Perhaps we can hear now from David. Do you have a hand up?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just to come back on Mr. Merkett's question really about the noise complaints received by noise and police. I don't know for sure about the police's any complaints made to them. But we do have to remember it's, you know, it could be the licensing unit, could be safer neighbourhood teams. So complaints to the police could go in quite a number of different places within the police force. Like I say, I don't know if the noise service have had complaints, but as has been mentioned, George from Environmental Protection withdrew a complaint, his representation. So I assume that there's something in that. Just in relation to the queuing, I can confirm that that's what one of the things that I saw when I visited. Mr. Knight was able to show me footage of customers arriving, queuing inside the site, scanning the QR codes before being shown to the table. So that is something that I was able to see. And then just the last point is that the current hours of use of the garden are covered in condition 30. So that's on page 11 of the license. That talks about the hours of use of the outdoor courtyard. And so that's what's essentially been the variations been sought for.
Okay. Right, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. But just to clarify, David, you said that you have had complaints.
I've had complaints sent to me directly, and the licensing service, we've had complaints received.
And have those been from a number of local residents, from a few local residents? Can you?
Yes, they have been received from more than one local resident.
Okay, and they're all the residents on Cotton's Gardens, presumably, or when I say, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to ask the residents who are objecting if, I mean, we've understood that they may not have handled the queuing and the management of the entrance well to start with, but has the situation improved in terms of the, you know, the queuing and the dispersal? William and then Marija. I think you both wanted. I'm sorry, I'm not handling the hands very well here. It's a bit confusing. So apologies if you've had a hand up and I haven't asked you to speak. But I do want to just clarify if there's been an improvement from both of you.
There has not been an improvement in the dispersal, as proven by the lack of checks and balances on what their customers are doing when they leave. They come and they urinate and they take drugs, and that has been visible. I've got the evidence. I've had to take pictures that I don't want to take. I've had to take videos that I don't want to take. That comes directly from rolling stock. I'm not going to complain about the other human traffic that comes down the street after their venue is closed. We've grown up and we understand that this is Shoreditch. But when it's visible and when we've been able to obtain the evidence that it's due to a lack of care on their part and a lack of proper management, then we have to raise that. We're in no position to not raise that. So the queuing has been less, the venue has been less busy, but that's not my business, that's their business. But the dispersal, no, the queuing has not gone down the street anymore. We accept that.
Okay.
But the dispersal is not being managed well, and we are still suffering as a result.
Okay, Marija, you're muted.
Yes, I was. We are talking about the nightclub crowd, so no, it hasn't been done yet. It hasn't been done, the queuing, and there are two entrances to the premises. There are two entrances to the premises. We have only one: the residents, the workers, everyone who lives there. We have no choice but to go via that. If the premises have two entrances, why not enter there and use the garden for whatever, if the levels of noise are down?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Miss Baz Ali, you have a hand up.
Yeah, just I mean, what I've been hearing is, there's kind of opinions from the supporters and the objectives, and I kind of completely respect Williams and Marija's opinions and kind of experiences of what's happening, and I think kind of just drawing attention on the fact that the fact that the Rolling Stock team have been trying to find a solution, and by trial and error, not by kind of negligence or bad management. These are unprecedented times, and trying to find the right way it often requires trial and error. Now it seems to me that if the issue is about the people that are leaving the premises, why not ensure that the last security or staff stays there until the last person has left onto Kingsland Road? Therefore, Rolling Stock has ensured that all the customers have vacated the premises and have got turned right onto Kingsland Road, have not allowed anyone to turn left unless they have business to do so, such as they have a car or whatever it is. That to me seems like a solution, and I think that's what we need to do. Is we need to think about a solution, because I don't think it's acceptable to say shut down this, shut down that. We've got to come together and kind of support each other, and I think support is the right thing.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can ask the applicant to respond to in terms of how to make this better.
I think if we have CCTV that's been in place for the last 3 months, we've sent stills to David on exit on every night, and there's a time-lapse video that we sent to David yesterday as well, and that's what happens. We have 3 SIA, we have 2 managers. The barriers get put out partly onto the street, and people leave onto the main road to the closest public transport. That is what we do. I don't know what William's talking about, that people turn left and take drugs. I mean, we close at 10 o'clock at night. People aren't stumbling out drunk. The area's just getting going, as far as I'm concerned. It's people don't stumble out of our venue drunk onto the Commons. It's very, very early.
Okay. Mr. Murcutt, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. I think the concerns of the residents were noted right from the beginning. It's been going for 6 months now, and I think due regard to the applicant for making all the efforts to try and sort this out, queuing one way, queuing the other way, extra security. It almost appears he was bending over backwards to make sure that there is no disturbance there. 3 SIA and 2 managers is quite significant for a crowd that is finishing at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. It has to be put in perspective. It's not a late hours application. This is well within the council policy for outside beer gardens. There's no regulated entertainment, no music, no noise. And the distance in that far corner, if we go back to that map, it's literally where that blue dot is, where they walk out. Now, I insisted years ago, I did a big West End club, and the owner just had CCTV everywhere, and it was challenged, and we went through it, and you could follow a disturbance which actually was from another club.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Evans has actually put forward to David and to the police open access to the video from the last 3 months. They can look at all the egresses and the ingresses, and if people are minded, it takes hours. You can look through. If there'd been a big issue, George in Noise would have been straight onto it. He'd have wanted an acoustic report. He'd wanted outside environmental monitoring, and so would the police. They're both completely happy that there is not an issue.
Yeah, you've made that point already. Thanks, Mr. Murcutt. Could we just hear from you why? I mean, you have the permission to use the outside and the side entrance until September, so that covers quite a large part of this summer. So this is a kind of long-term application. Can you just explain to us why, in the longer term, there's no way that the premises could not revert? I mean, if we assume things go back to normal, which they may not, but just assuming they do, why can you not revert to how things were before? In terms of the condition on the original condition on the rolling stock, which said use the main entrance on the, I mean, that condition was there in order to avoid any hassles with the residents of Cotton's Gardens. And I'm asking why the management can't revert to that way of managing the premises.
Well, it's actually affecting the business. The front entrance is probably 80 meters from the garden, and we've noticed that it has actually helped our business to walk up from the street onto the garden. For us to sustain the rent that we have to pay, it's actually helped us, going forward.
Well, I understand that it's helped you in terms of the COVID times, because obviously a better and more easily accessible route to an outside is clearly desirable, and that's why the planning regulations and the business regulations allowed that. But so you're saying that you don't have confidence that you can manage economically to run the premises how it was when things are back to normal?
Monday to Thursday, no, I don't think so. It's you have to walk through a large area of the club to go into the garden, and just people just walk past the main street, the main door. It's with the gates being closed, we're not getting the walk up. Just isn't happening.
I mean, there are plenty of premises that, for example, there are bars in Dalston that have a roof garden, and they advertise heavily that they have a roof garden. You can't see it from the street. You have to walk all the way up the building to get to the roof garden, but they make a feature of it and they add to their business that way. I mean, there are ways of using a space and advertising it other than walk ups.
Yeah, I mean, we've been there.
You didn't use the garden much before COVID.
Yes, yeah, we've had for the garden for 7 years.
Right.
License for the venue for 14, with temporary events at the beginning, and we've noticed over the last year, through having the gates open, it has helped us a lot.
Okay, that is, I think it's really important that we just explored that for the committee. Thanks. I have hands up from both the objectors. So I think I need to hear from them before you, Mr. Murcutt. Marija, do you have something you still want to say?
Yes, it's Maria, by the way.
Maria, I'm so sorry.
No problem. So we are talking about helping one business to do better versus how many residents and owners, and also the letters, the support came from temporary residents. I've had a property for 13 years.
Okay.
And allowing an extra entrance for one business when there is already one in place and they are using the garden. I'm very wary because so far there's been disregard for the asked, and the factual. It's really problematic for me what Mr. Murcutt came forward with and what's advertised on the website of Rolling Stock, which I have open in front of me, and I'm willing to share with you the link here as well. You know, the opening hours are different from what we have in the report here.
The problem is that if you look on the page, the applicant has made a number of successful applications for temporary event notices. So there've been for the days of the week, they said that they didn't have till 10 o'clock. They've had temporary event notices covering them till 10 o'clock. So anything that's been open till 10 o'clock has probably been legitimate. Does that explain that to you?
Okay, that explains that.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. William, you have a hand up still.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to clarify, these aren't our opinions. These are instances that we have direct evidence of. We're happy to share. David has that evidence. These are not situations that we have made up. And as an added final point, our general experience of communicating has been met with aggression. I've been sworn at holding my young children, you know, by the proprietor. These are just facts. These are deeply uncomfortable situations for us to live in as a family with 2 young children. There has only been open hostility, and it's made my family scared. It's made my children scared. We do not intend to impact on anybody's livelihood. We're aware that rolling stock has been in the area for, you know, a good amount of time. This is not about trying to close it down. This is about trying to come to some kind of compromise whereby the standard of living of long-standing local residents isn't disregarded in favor of, you know, one business's financial issues.
Can I just clarify with you then that I think both you and Maria have said that the side gate is the main issue. Are there ways that we could try and make the use of the side gate better, or are you you're totally opposed to the use of it? Okay.
Totally opposed as well.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see who. I had a hand from Mr. Ali, from Baz Ali.
Just one final point. I think we need to disregard the point about permanent and temporary residents. I think that's absolute nonsense, and I also don't think it's fair for anyone to be sharing anyone's residential status. I mean, at the end of the day,
That's fine. I think the committee would do that anyway. So
okay. And just a final point in terms of kind of hours of use. I mean, I think it's just something to reflect on. Kind of calculating in a week, rolling stock are operating about 8.4%. You know, hours that are actual busy of a whole week. And I just think we need to kind of take that into consideration, the fact that we're trying to find a solution. I think we're close to finding a solution. And then considering the fact that it's less than 10% of all the hours in a week that they're actually operational and running and trying to make a living, we've got to consider that. And that's my final point.
Thank you. Mr. Murcutt.
I welcome the discussion on compromise and different solutions, and perhaps it's been overlooked that from Monday to Thursday the egress will be through the club. The only reason it was difficult on Friday and Saturday was the main club's operating, and there's an issue with safety and security and searches, weapons, drugs, all sorts. It's mixing 2 crowds. You're mixing an afternoon beer garden crowd with a nightclub crowd that's going to be until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're different people by and large. So that was the reason. During the week, in other words, to appease the residents that are disturbed, the egress would be through the club, and that is willing to be accepted as a condition. So it's only on the issue of health and safety and searches. I mean, Byron might be able to add a bit more to that, it's a bit of a stumbling block, but there's been a lot of concessions made since this application went in, and I think we're still open to more ideas if that would work for the committee as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Yes, Byron.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, having the gate open, yes, it is for one business, but it's not just one business. It's all the people that work for us as well. They rely on the hours. All my staff, you know, it's been a tough year. Everyone's looking for work. And I'd just like to say, it's just not down to one business owner. It's down to a collective. It's the people we buy the alcohol from. It's trying to get the whole industry back on its feet as well, and not being open Monday to Thursday because we can't get the walk up. I mean, I think that has a big impact.
Okay. Can I just, the Monday to Thursday egress through the club, is that something that's happening now?
Not at the moment, no.
At the moment. So that would be an improvement.
Yes.
Residents, do you find that a positive improvement?
It's going in the right direction.
In the right direction.
It's not complete. No.
Yes, I'm just a bit wary of the notions of beer garden, club crowd, and weekend. I'm very, very worried about that. And again, the same problem of drugs, alcohol, and urination.
Okay. Okay, I think we're coming to the point where we've had an enormous amount of information given to us. Thank you to everybody for your contributions. I'm just going to check, colleagues, do you feel we have enough information now to make our decision? Is there anything else you wish to hear or clarify? Councillor Bell.
Just one simple thing. My voice is going again as it tends to at this time of the afternoon. But could we have a clearer map submitted as part of the application? Because currently all we've got is a little space called gravelled area. Doesn't really tell you anything. So if it could have an indicative outline of the outside area and how it's going to be used, and a clear barrier between much later licensed club area and the outside area. So I'm relaxed as to whether that's a condition or just an informative, but just to get it absolutely clear on the license now, which applies to each area.
Okay.
Sorry, the last thing for me is to just confirm around this gate. So if at all the beer garden is open without the gate, are you saying without the gate it won't work? I mean, without using that gate that is not really next to the premises, that would it not work? Will it work? Is there another entrance? Is it possible to go through the main premises and get to the beer garden? Would you consider that at all?
Well, like I said, in the last 7 years the garden's been operating, we've seen a significant increase in footfall through the gates being open. So it has helped us as a business rather than the other entrance that is like 80 meters away, and it almost seems like two different venues. And may I add as well, I just wondered, may I just add, I just wondered if William Fairman, if his building that's for sale at the moment, if that got sold when it went up for sale in November, whether we'd all actually be sitting here, because it just seems like we've been.
Whoops, you've muted yourself.
Sorry, we didn't catch that.
Didn't catch, you muted.
Yeah, sorry, I just would like to say, I wonder if we'd all be sitting here if William Fairman's building that is actually for sale at the moment, if that got sold, whether we'd still be sitting here. It's him and his father at number 6, and I think his sister that's.
You've muted yourself again.
Yeah, I just wondered if we'd actually be sitting here if William Fairman's building was sold. It's up for sale at the moment. So his father, Robert, and his sister, I just wondered if that would be a factor, whether we'd still be sitting here now if that actually got sold. Because it just seems like we've been targeted by one building, which is actually one family. It's just something I needed to say.
I'm not sure that that was necessarily a wise thing to say. And in view of that, I will now hear from William Fairman and Maria.
Maria, would you like to answer that first?
I mean, I've never either met William nor had any correspondence with Mr. Fairman or with Rolling Stock. So I'm from a completely different block on the same side as the Rolling Stock block. So I get different kind of noise from the other residents that are opposite, and have, yeah, nothing to do with this kind of conspiracy that's been spoken of. But I know that the other owners, I'm kind of representing the block because they have other businesses at the moment. So yeah, that's my answer to it.
Okay, thank you. And that was what you wanted to say. You had your hand up in response, and that's you done.
Yes,
okay.
yes,
Thank
and
you.
yes, and that I'm really sorry to hear about this aggressive behavior that took place between the owner or
Okay, thank you, Maria. William, did you want to come back on that, or are you happy to leave that?
I mean, it's our personal business, really, number one. Number two, practically, I mean, by nature of the fact that we wouldn't be living on the streets if this building was sold, then no, I don't think you probably would be getting any more complaints from us. Probably be getting complaints from the people who bought it. But that question is none of anyone else's business.
Yeah.
And it only backs up the idea that we have some conspiracy. I've been accused of throwing eggs at that venue. That has actually got me attacked recently. The person was arrested. You know, we are under real danger by these conspiracies and this idea that one family wants to close one business down. It's, I mean, that's just objectionable, really. It's shocking.
Okay, right. I'm going to close the meeting for any new information now. I'm going to ask if anybody wishes to have a final just summing up of their position. I will ask David Tuitt first. Do you wish to sum up your position now?
I've got nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murcutt, do you wish to?
Yes, please. Yes. It sort of worries me a bit. We're all going in the right direction to get solutions and backwards and forwards and keeping the residents happy. Under the policy and under the law, anyone can make a representation against this. We could have had the Shoreditch Vintage Society objecting, but more weight is usually given to the residents directly opposite. And it strikes me there's a balance. There's one set of residents saying it's absolutely terrible. There's people doing all sorts. And there's another set that live right next door with their windows open saying there's not a noise issue and there's not a police issue and there's not an aggression issue. And what worries me is these are objections that have not been formally substantiated in 6 months. The police have not substantiated anything, and the noise team have not substantiated. The residents have had every opportunity to ring the noise team and say, look, this is driving me absolutely crazy, come down and listen. And that, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't happened. George has said there's not an issue. He's negotiated quite fiercely over reduced hours to do that. We've also had the egress Monday to Thursday going through the club. And it is a beer garden, and it seems to hinge on this gate for historical reasons. I mean, one issue I would like to bring up about the planning, that's completely separate legislation about the planning. And should this be granted, obviously a planning application would go in to formalise that. But I can see to be honest, it's not often we get such good letters of support from residents that live so close and that are genuinely, I'd be genuinely concerned there's such a dichotomy of opinion myself. And it's a bit strange. But other than that, I think the applicant has the conditions and the willingness to accept all these conditions puts it in a strong position to be granted. And I would ask that you grant this application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, residents, does anybody wish to make a summing up? We can't take any new information now. Does anybody wish to have a final? I think a lot of you have summed up your position finally, so unless anybody has something they particularly want to finish with. Okay, William.
These aren't opinions, these are recorded facts as recorded by David Tuitt. There is multiple documents, dates, and audio and visual evidence to back everything up. So the fact that these keep on coming back to be called opinions is not accurate at all. And those facts and details are available for everyone to see.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, we do accept complaints to licensing as well as to the police and the noise, so that's understood. Maria?
Yes, I just wanted to ask David if he's allowed to openly say how many complaints have been from the different residents and from how many different apartments, maybe.
I did ask him that before, and he did indicate that it was more than one.
There's certainly complaints for more than one, but I would have to look at timescales and go into our records to see what I could find.
Because sorry.
No. Go on, carry on.
Yes, because there's a big difference between, more than one. We are 2 here, and then there is 2 supports, and then many different objections. So it would be great to have some more like factual information, like to get it straight to numbers. Because not to mix emotions and facts.
Okay, I mean, it's always difficult. I mean, similarly, you gave your representation and then said you were speaking on behalf of a number of people in your block, and that's difficult for us to know. So this is always very difficult, because we always reach this point where when things are difficult, it would always help to have more information, but the committee will now go away and make a decision based on the information that it has, which is all we can do. Okay.
Thank you.
I wish to thank everybody very much. Councillor Bell, did you want to say something before we end?
Just two final clarifications for myself, just in case I'm confused about 2 things, both very straightforward, I think. Is the applicant applying for exactly the same hours on Thursday as Friday and Saturday? Yes. So it's not just Friday and Saturday, it's weekend hours on a Thursday as well, or slightly extended hours. And can I just also clarify, what are you proposing about access through the club? Is it on no occasions at the moment will access be through the main club? Will it always be from Cotton Gardens?
Access would be through Cotton's Gardens.
Every day of the week, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, it's just clarification from me.
So access every day and egress, leaving, would be through the club Monday to Thursday?
Yes.
Thanks, Councillor Bell, for clarifying that. Anything else to clarify? No. Legal officer, you're happy to. Okay. Right, in that case, I thank everybody very much for your time, and we will now ask you all to leave, and councillors and the legal officer will stay and make the decision, and we'll let you know as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.